Welcome to a special broadcast of the G.L. Henderson Show on the ArtistFirst Radio Network. All past shows are podcasts. You can find them at ArtistFirst.com. Now, sitting in for G.L. tonight is our guest host, judge, and author, Mr. Hubert L. Grimes.
Thank you, Zeev. It's a pleasure to be with you again and looking forward to having a great conversation tonight. I always like to think of this opportunity as a conversation, like if we're sitting down having a cup of coffee or a cup of tea with a dear friend. And certainly we have one such individual with us tonight, and we're just grateful, particularly since she had to step up somewhat to kind of help us to fill in a gap that we had. And I just want to extend my sincere appreciation to Councilwoman Barb Girtman here in the Volusia County, the home of the world's most famous beach. But her reach goes far beyond the city of Daytona Beach. It covers the entire county of Volusia, which is a county of approximately a little over 500,000 people, just outside to the east of Orlando, the home of Disney. And so we're just grateful tonight, and you're going to have a chance to hear some wonderful things that she's been involved with. I hope that my listeners tonight that are out there may be some people that may have an interest in pursuing some of the similar dreams that she has made reality. And certainly I hope that the conversation she gives you tonight will indeed inspire, motivate, and challenge those of our listening audience. So welcome to the call, Councilwoman Girtman. Good evening.
Well, good evening, and thank you for the opportunity. I'm grateful to spend an hour with you.
Always. And like I said, we're sitting down having a cup of tea with a dear friend tonight, and she has certainly begun to impact this community in many, many, many positive ways. Let's start off with our listeners. Barb, give us your background. Tell us where you're from and the things that you have got you to this point in your life.
Sure. So, originally from Long Island, New York, born and raised, and now live in DeLand, Florida. And I moved to Florida in 1984, but have been coming to the area since I was a child because my great-grandparents and grandparents were here. So this was always the family vacation location during the school and summer breaks. So that's how DeLand got on my radar.
Okay.
But graduated and got myself through school and ultimately achieved my master's in healthcare administration and served about 30 years in healthcare, various more administrative type of roles, but many times I worked with Johnson & Johnson. I worked with a national mental health organization and several insurance companies, and typically I've always been more of a visionary, and somehow I was always at the C-suite table,
right,
able to share ideas and thoughts, and being one of the few, if only, persons of color in that environment, able to just interject and give ideas and ask questions, and I guess I've always been that way. So,
wow.
So that's
kind
of how. Yeah, I still am.
You're still giving ideas and energizing people. She's very modest, folks, about what she's been doing here, particularly in impacting Volusia County, and so she's being very modest about that now. But she does stimulate ideas and thoughts, and she challenges people. She may display in this conversation a quiet demeanor, but she's got that, what we would call that steel, she's got a iron fist inside of a velvet glove. she is that lady. She is the one that can move mountains to get things done. So I just want to celebrate you because you have been so awesome in the role that you've had. Now, you transformed that experience, and from healthcare, you expanded that. So talk about some of the other things that you moved into from healthcare, because you're very active in some other areas as well.
I am. Like I said, I've been in various environments in healthcare, and what was it? During the recession, about 2011, my dad was ill and on hospice, and I felt I needed to come back to Florida because through Johnson & Johnson and the other national company, I left Florida. I was in 5 years in Baltimore, 5 years in Philly, 5 years in Tampa, and then I came to back to DeLand in 2011 when my dad was ill. And at that time, I decided I needed something flexible that allowed me to serve him, help my mom, but also keep the funds flowing. So I became a realtor at that time, and it's been, another 11, 12 years since that time. So still currently serving our community, making dreams come true with people's homes.
Wow.
But that's kind of how it happened, is needing that flexible schedule and being able to be a resource to my family and community.
And that's so important now because we're in a very driven area. Florida has become sort of a magnet for people that are many retirees and people that are moving to Florida. I can only imagine the amount of growth that you have probably seen over the last, let's say just over the last 10 years here in the area.
Yeah, for sure. Because remember, 2011 was also recession time. So our market crashed, our home market in Florida crashed, the short sales, the foreclosures that were happening back at that time. We're having a major concern with growth now, but at that time you couldn't get a builder to build anything. So a difficult time to start in real estate in one way, but also time to really get your feet in, get the training, get the education, and prepare yourself. So it turned out to be a good move for me at that time because, like I said, just a very driven person. When I put my mind to it and plan it usually manifests itself in the way that God intends. So,
wow. So talk about that. Let's focus on that for a moment, because that seems to be one of the things that's going kind of wild right now here in Florida, and particularly in Central Florida. That the housing market. I mean, over the past year, we read articles about the fact that this is it's been a seller's market, if we might call it that, and yet the prices have gone through the roof for so many homes, and yet they're selling. I mean, these are some of the numbers I've heard sound like we're getting numbers like up north now. So what do you see happening with that whole arena?
Well, for me, what I believe has happened is Florida has made its adjustment. So I remember when California adjusted, when New York adjusted. Say, for example, when my parents followed me here, I moved to here in 84. My parents followed me in 85. And imagine they sold their home for $50,000, right? And 2 years later, that same home in New York was worth somewhere $250,000 to $300,000, because there was that kind of shift in the market there. Now, gratefully, we haven't had that same level of jump over that shorter period of time. But to me, what's happened in Florida is the price adjustment has happened, and I think the pandemic has had a big effect on on the numbers as well, because I do believe that through the pandemic, people who were on the fence with what they wanted to do, life dreams, life choices, to me in 2020 and 2021, people made the choices to get off the fence and purchase or sell or make a lot of the decisions. And I think 2022, we're feeling the brunt of that. Because
so
again,
many people
the inventory.
Okay. Well, I was thinking about that because so many people we've seen articles that talk about those who have, they talked about even the great, what do you call it, the great retirement, the great people leaving their traditional jobs. How much of that is sort of tied into home sales and people working from home and this whole almost like a new normal of sorts that seems to be evolving?
I think so. So think about what I said about my mom in '85 and the housing adjustment there now 40 years ago. So now that $300,000 house is worth what? At least $600 now?
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
In that environment. And now you're somebody who's been there 30, 40 years, so your home is now paid off. You're either retiring from a salary that's a northern salary and moving to Florida with no income tax, right?
Right.
No state tax.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
And you're coming with, if you're still working, you're either coming with a northern type of pension where when we look at incomes, the incomes are at least double what is typically the average in Florida, or at least in Volusia County. If I look at Florida, New York, the northern areas, and frankly, when I chose to move back to Florida, it was because I was working with a company that I could move here, work from home with a northern salary, right, and survive. If I had to just move here and get a job here in Florida, I probably wouldn't have made that choice at that time. I wouldn't have moved to Tampa at that time if I couldn't not have moved here on a Philadelphia salary.
Wow.
With Johnson & Johnson. So, yeah. So I think it's what we're seeing is either those people working from home, moving here through the pandemic. It was decided that they could work from home or work from wherever and get that level of salary. If you're going to sell, you could sell, come here, buy a home cash, put the rest in the bank, and still have a good salary to live on. And I think that's a big part of what's happened.
Wow. And now we're seeing, because of the influx of people, it looks like the population influx is even greater now than what it might have been even 10 years ago. I mean, we used to think of Florida as being a place that people were attracted to, but it seems like now it's like all the doors and the gates and anything that was stopping people from coming, they seem to now be wide open. I mean, we're a state now of over 20 million people, and it's rapidly growing. What is I'm sure that they say how many people are moving to Florida each day? 1,000. Wow. 1,000 people each day. That's just amazing. And so, yes, so I want to transition here shortly into talking about the political side of this piece, but how does the real estate market adjust to that influx of over 1,000 people a day moving to the state of Florida?
I think we're in that evolution. Everybody is a realtor these days.
Okay.
So many people are finding ways. This is their secondary income, right? There's a lot of part-time realtors out there who just find themselves either now here retired and like, what else should I do? And that's the direction they go. So I think our local realtor association has doubled in its size. That happened back with where they really had the building boom back in 2004 and 5, right before the recession.
Okay.
So that's one of the ways it's being accommodated. But the other is the building boom. And I think, what was I told yesterday, that Osceola County has grown, did they say it was 40% in 10 years?
I wouldn't be surprised. Probably.
I think
and for those of you that may not be familiar with Florida, Osceola County is immediately west of Orlando. Orange County is really the home of Disney. And that area has grown. I remember when it was nothing but orange groves out there when I was a kid growing up. But wow, 40%.
But that's
40%
how much.
increase.
Yeah, we had a presentation yesterday from the Department of Transportation, and they were talking about, you think Volusia has growth,
Wow.
and it used to be the average growth that the Transportation Department would build based on, was 3%. And it's like, how on earth could you possibly manage a 40% growth pattern or expectation, And of course, it can't stay at that level, but just that kind of a jump, I think Volusia may be 10 or 11%, and people are losing their minds. So, so imagine what this would look like if it was 40%. So,
you're right that wherever I drive in Volusia County, if I'm driving throughout the Daytona Beach area, there's so much significant. There are apartments going up everywhere. There are new houses going up everywhere. And even though there are things like the stock market is kind of bouncing back and forth, and there are people talking about gas prices and inflation and these kinds of things, it hasn't hit the housing market. It seems like they're still building. And I even saw a couple new areas just yesterday they're being prepped for a new subdivision. In fact, we have an area called the LPGA area, and that seems like it's just like busting out all over. So I guess this is symptomatic of other areas here in Volusia County.
Yep, it is, and but what do they say? When you know better, you should be doing better. So with the level of growth we have, there's a lot of concern about making some adjustments to focus on the impact on our waterways, on our environment, on our school systems, and the impact that growth has on us. But again, a lot of it used to be a lot of families moving up and moving down as far as getting bigger houses or getting smaller houses, seniors getting smaller homes, and families moving up. Now, so much of the new development is people coming in from out of state.
Wow.
So,
well,
your governor has invited so many people in to the wide open and free access state of Florida. So.
Well, that also carries a price with it, and it's not just the price in dollars and cents that we talk about. But I want to kind of circle back around for a moment, because as you talked about your as a businesswoman who's a realtor, but you've also got another career where you're impacting a significant portion of people with your decision making. In fact, over 500,000 people populate the county of Volusia. And for those of you that are trying to have a problem with trying to figure out how we say that, it's Volusia, Volusia County. And that's in your role as a councilwoman. And talk about that decision to run for Volusia County Council. Talk about a little bit of the process and your whole election, because you didn't get there You didn't wake up one morning and just say, "Hey, I think I want to be a councilwoman." I know that those out there who ascribe to wanting to become an elected official at some point. So let's talk about your journey. How did you first decide that you wanted to leave the confines of just everyday 9 to 5 and take on the duties and responsibilities of being an elected official at the local level?
Well, what's funny, it had never even occurred to me. Had never really occurred to me until I met Councilwoman at that time, Joyce Cusack.
Okay.
And the question I had when I met her was, who's coming behind her? And when I say that, I meant what person, woman of color, who has an eye for the Black and brown community and for the underserved, and who's gonna take the mantle once I knew she would be terming out at some point. And from the work I had started to do within the community, I had started looking for, okay, where are the young leaders? Where are the people who are ready to take the helm? When so many of the pioneers and those who had served, Mr. David Staples was president of the West Volusia NAACP. He had been for 20 years. You could tell it was going to be time to start transitioning. So I kept looking for, okay, who's next to help stand up for what we need to be done. And I remember saying to her just that, like, okay, who are you grooming to come behind you and be ready to step up on some level so there's visibility. And I've always tried to be that model where I mentioned being in corporate, and most times I was the only one sitting at the C-suite table. I was the only person of color who positioned myself to be somewhere to be heard and to have input, and for whatever reason have that being received. So that was a big part of it for me. And I think that
No, go ahead.
I was going to say that I had started when I became a realtor. I also am somebody who likes to stay busy, but also once I slowed down, I really started to see a lot of the things that were impacting community and looking again for that leadership. Who can I take a concern to? And ultimately, I said to myself, it's either time that you become the change you want to see, or go sit down and stop complaining, right? Because the people that you see that are out there.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, you sound like that scripture that said, who shall I send? And you said, Lord, send me. And you became that person that picked the ball up and ran with it. That's great.
Well, I couldn't find somebody to hand it to, right? That wasn't looking at me saying, my hands are already full, so why are you handing me something when your hands are just as capable as mine? And I just felt that I started looking for places not to recreate a wheel, but places where I could get involved and get a better understanding of where the leadership was, where the true needs were, and where were you not having to recreate something, but more enhancing what already exists. So I bring up Mr. David Staples because the NAACP, the West Volusia and Volusia NAACP, was one of those places that I went to because I felt they have a structure already. Whether you choose to follow it or not, there's a true structure for how they want and expect things to be done. The other environment that I connected to was the Rotary Club.
Okay.
And I felt that to be represented in a community, I needed for people to get to know Barb Girtman and know my heart and know why I serve. This is before becoming an elected official, but all of it, what I didn't recognize, was all preparing me for making that choice. So that was a big part of just getting involved, starting to volunteer, and I think it was Mario Davis who mentioned to me, you should apply for the West Volusia Hospital Authority because you have, healthcare experience, and this is a good way of getting involved politically and really being able to determine if it's a fit for you and if, what else you may want to do in the future. So that was the first election.
And you actually got elected to the West Volusia County Hospital Authority back in 2014 or 2016?
2014.
Okay.
So I served on there for 4 years and was unopposed twice. I chaired that committee 2 of those 4 years, and that kind of gave me more insight, and I used that to leverage the opportunity to run for Volusia County Council. And
so for those young people that are out there, let me hit that point again, because what you're just saying is that you got involved. First of all, you talked with people who were in these positions who could give you insight, almost a mentoring of sort, and then you followed up with that by getting involved with, say, what we might call the grassroots kinds of organizations. So, and I heard you say, so people would get to know your heart. And that is so important today at a time when we see people are doing, we see so much negativity on the national level, but a lot of the change that needs to take place is happening on the local level. So you actually are giving a map. And so for those young people who may be out there in our listening audience that are wondering, well, how do you get to be an elected official? Take notes. You hear her sharing with you that, you start small. You start, you didn't get to be the state senator or the U.S. senator, the U.S. congressman by jumping all the way up there without having that concrete foundation of one, letting people know who you are, how you are as an individual, what your heart is, and then building upon that as a foundation to be able to take on even greater responsibility. And it just seems like so many people today, they want to shoot for the top without having had that opportunity to build a strong foundation. So I certainly commend you, and I hope that those listeners out there, those young people who may have that desire, and I say young because if you're still here on planet Earth, you still are in the category of being young. So if you got a desire to want to give to your community at another level, here is that roadmap that she's just laid out for you. So you were able to take your healthcare experience working in the industry, you then roll that and spread it out by giving back to your community as a hospital commissioner for the county. And then you built upon that and then found yourself moving into the direction of becoming an actual member of the county council. So share with us and our listeners in terms of how you evolved from being a hospital commissioner to the next role of being, and particularly because we're seeing a lot of women of color who are running for office and who are helping to make changes that need to be made in our society these days, and yet there were barriers. But you didn't let those barriers stop you from pursuing your dream, even if it was a dream that came not when you were a child, but emerged as a part of your growth process, your being a participant in your local community. Share with us how that vision evolved.
Well, I had always, once I met with Joyce Cusack, it was kind of like a glimmer in the back. It wasn't full on until I was volunteering. I was on the board and volunteering with the Museum of Art's DeLand with a good friend of mine, Judy Thompson. Okay. And early on when I first moved back to DeLand, and I started going downtown DeLand, what we noticed was very few people of color would be downtown DeLand.
Okay.
And we started having these groups called bridge building, and it was where we would bring the elders, the black elders in the community, and the open-minded whites together and have true conversations about the land and the healing or the need for it or the concerns, right?
Okay.
And that was also part of getting a better understanding of the why. And for me, again, since I'm not from here, I don't carry a lot of baggage. For I know the issues are there, and I don't disrespect them, but I also don't let them create me. I pretty much, move through it, over it, under it, whatever it takes to get to the next base, right? So, working with Judy Thompson, who was president of the Museum of Art DeLand, there was an effort that we had to bring film to try to bring a film commission or reinitiate a film commission in Volusia. And I can recall going with this group to the county council, and the person who was leading did a presentation in front of the county council. And it wasn't like during the 3-minute public comment. It was like a full-on presentation. And after the presentation was done, there were crickets. The only person who gave a comment was Joyce Cusack, right? The District 1 representative, which District 1 is what I serve now, and the other council members never even acknowledged, or it was like they just shut down. And I thought that was so disrespectful, that with the effort that had gone into this, that there wasn't even well, thank you for your presentation, or, this isn't for us at this time, or whatever that is, for there to be no acknowledgement. I just really felt at that point that person had a target on their back that I wanted, that I felt I could do a better job in that role. And I started from that point, and that was 5 years before I ran for office, that I started, again, positioning myself in the community and planting the seeds, planting the seeds throughout to really target being prepared to run in 2018 against the person in that seat, because I felt that not only that individual, but I felt that the culture of the county staff, I just felt it needed an injection of some awareness and some humbleness and some proactiveness, that people deserve better. And when you leave there, you should feel heard and respected, even if it wasn't agreed to, right? You should still have left there feeling, well, at least they heard what I had to say, and they received it, respected it, even if they didn't accept it, or agree to it. So I positioned myself.
You have become a difference maker there. There's no question about that. And you are actually, not only are you a difference maker for our county and for the influences there, but even now, as you're going out and you're talking to groups and talking to young people, and even what you're doing now, reaching out to the broader community of young women out there, particularly women of color, who may have an interest in wanting to do the same thing in their communities. You're telling them that it can be done.
And that's what I seek to do, is to be that model of you can too. Just like I said, when we were trying to make a difference downtown DeLand, and we have over the course of those 10 years that we've been investing intentionally in that. I stand as a model of somebody who puts myself where I want to be. And I don't allow someone else's attitude to deter what I have in mind to do. And I'm one of those persons who believes what God has for me is for me. So if that's what I have a vision for and plan and prepare for, then there's very little that can block the blessing.
Amen.
And that's been the story. That's been the story of my life. And while being on the council, this year I was voted as vice chair. I'm not the most senior on the council, but I'm seen as one that's fair and balanced and thoughtful, and not about picking sides and not about partisan issues. I really come to this trying to come to the best results for what the issue and what's on the agenda, what's on the established agenda, and what's the best path forward is how I try to approach these opportunities. So. All
right. Well, certainly that's the kind of thing that we need to do because, unfortunately, that seems to have been, unfortunately for far too many people, a disconnect between, I would say, many of our seasoned elders who started on that journey. They may have been the first this or the first that. And oftentimes, unfortunately, they have not done what you and former Councilwoman Cusack did. They did not reach back out to bring somebody along to mentor, to encourage, or even for that matter, just to open the door. And so I want to just commend you because you didn't try to upset the apple cart per se, but like you say, you took your time, you strategized, you worked at it, you showed people what your character was, you had a disciplined approach to going about your business, and whether it was in the business of healthcare or realty or even politics. And I think that is the kind of example that needs to be set, because far too often we're seeing people, unfortunately, that gets in the media today. It seems like the noise that's coming out of D.C. are that people want to see what can they do to one-up, be more negative than the person on the other side of the person that came before them. And they're not wrestling with the real hard issues that we are facing in this country right now.
That's the truth. And let me tell you, it took all that for me to win by 175 votes. So it wasn't that I won by a landslide. It took me 5 years to prepare and to beat this deeply entrenched politician, by 175 votes. It took 10 days for them to get to the decision through the recount. But it was worth every bit of it. And now that I'm up for re-election, I have work that I've started that I want to finish. So it's important to me to put all I can into this effort to be re-elected. And there are several people now in the race. Someone got in it today, so it's gonna be interesting, how things go forward. But like I said, what's for me is for me.
And you have set a standard of service. You have helped to bring about a number of different changes here in Volusia County, and I like your willingness even to reach out to our audience here. That's the kind of person that I know you to be, and I have no doubt whatsoever that you're going to be reelected, and we've got people that are already championing your cause, and we look forward to that expanding even more. And of course, we know that there are those who just, what I like about you, Barb, and may I say this in particular, is that you're not one to turn away from addressing a problem. We know that we've seen so many issues going on out in small jurisdictions, and I don't want to belabor the issue of we know that guns have become, and particularly these, the ARs, AR-15s, the assault rifles, all this stuff is going on, but it's a national conversation, but the impact is being felt locally throughout the country. And
right.
I just know that while it may not be here, we're blessed that we've got we've got law enforcement that's been working in our communities, working to try to help build mutual respect.
Yes.
And I know that is a big one because, while I don't know what's going on in Texas or what's going on in New York or what's going on in Tennessee, I know what we are attempting to do here in the Daytona Beach, DeLand, Volusia County area. And what kind of advice could you give to other listeners that may help them to better understand the struggle and even some of the challenges that go into dealing with identifying the local problems and then coming up with some recommended solutions for those things?
Well, I'll say one of the challenges I have right now with running for re-election is that I have to do the job. Last time I was running for election, so I didn't have the job to have to do the job and run for re-election. So this time, this time it's a much greater challenge because I've really spread myself really thin to really get ingrained in the needs of the community. So I sit currently on about 10 different boards, and there were concerns of mine for when I ran for office, besides the concern with the humbleness or the need for humbleness and the need for proactivity from staff on at the county. I had a concern about the infrastructure in our county, our roads, and our access to broadband, because I was having challenges, and through the pandemic, it was certainly identified that we had areas of unmet need. I sit on affordable housing. I sit on our Rotary. I sit on our Boys and Girls Club, our career source for jobs, also our local CRAs for Spring Hill and our underserved areas. So all of that is, for me, really getting down into the crux of what needs are within a community. And many times people don't see the work that you're doing. You're weaving the quilt more or less, or the network behind it and underneath it. So once it gets firm enough, then you can display the harvest, right? I'm sowing the seed first, nurturing it, trying to grow it, weeding out some stuff, and it's not always ready for prime time. It's not always ready for everybody to be made aware of the work that has gone into it underneath. And I'm not one for every time I plant a seed that I've got to make announcement about it, right?
Gotcha.
I want to see the results. I want people to see the results. I want them to feel the results. So I explain, especially in underserved areas, that if somebody is hungry and I can give them $20 to feed themselves and their family tonight, that's going to be a much greater impact than me telling you that I'm going to invest $2 million in something that 10 years from now is going to make a difference in your life, right? So I try to sow the seed at the heart of people today, that $200, that $2,000, the things that are going to impact people's lives, while I'm investing in getting the longer range broadband $7 million project, on board, or those new roads and those new sidewalks we need. All those things, the seeds are being sown for it, and they're all going to harvest at different times. But I'm not like checking off a list for everybody to say, look at what Barb's doing. And I know
one of the things you just stirred up in me was the fact that you mentioned the word quilt. And when I think about a quilt, I think about, certainly my grandmother and my aunts who made quilts, who sold them. And I think about taking the little small pieces, multicolors, different backgrounds. I mean, it might have been a piece of cotton and a piece of wool or something else sewn together. And then, of course, with cotton stuff in it or whatever it might be to help make it warm and comfortable. And that just brought to me one of the things that seems to happen in Florida is that we're seeing a changing demographic. When you look at the population growth amongst the white community versus amongst the Hispanic community versus amongst the black community, and then amongst even the Asian community. And because we're in Florida, we're seeing people of all different ethnicities coming to Florida, and it's changing the dynamics. And I think that that's probably one of the reasons why our governor has tried his best to try to slow down those changes. Things like they've done, like making certain things that they've taken certain books out of the classrooms of schools, and they're putting them on a no-read list, or they have said certain things you can't teach. Certain companies can't teach the things about critical race theory, or can't teach anything that makes another group of people feel guilty about the sins of their foreparents. And yet, our state, our area, is continuing to grow. The diversity of our area is amazing, and you are one of those people that have helped to tie us all together and to help us to understand how to get along with each other and how to be civil and how to work together to address, like you talked about, a lot of those common problems that come about just because of the growth that we all are experiencing.
I really believe that there is you will not replace me, and unfortunately there is I think that is a big concern, right? So I look at the county council, the current candidates. There's 2 women out of now 19 candidates, if not 20. There are 2 women, and those 2 women are 2 black women. So it's very likely, if I do not win this race, that we will have all male county council. And that does not represent Volusia County. That is not representative of Volusia County. And if the one black male does not win, it's highly likely it will be a predominantly, white male county council, and most likely those who think a certain way.
And that's the thing that sort of troubles me, because what we are stronger and better when that quilt is tight.
Yes.
Because we get a diversity of thoughts. It means that we don't all think the same way. We don't all act the same way.
Right.
And I think about the fact that when a good example of that is when the United States participates in world competitions, athletic competitions such as the Olympics, and we see a diversity of people, of backgrounds. You see people who are, black, with Native American, who are white, who are Asian, and each one has got their own specialty, their own gift that they bring to the table. And of course, at the end, when they're standing on that podium, they're representing the United States. And so there are those who seem to believe that, we just want to be one-dimensional. We don't want anybody thinking differently than what we think. And unfortunately, I think that is, it seems to me that that's something that's not only outdated, but we're seeing that as a dying off thought process.
I would
and
hope
I wanna,
so.
Again, yeah. And I do hope that those, again, I want to emphasize to those that are listening that, she's giving you a roadmap, folks, tonight, of how you could start from little and obtain a lot. And it's not as if you're doing this necessarily for yourself. You're doing it because you have a passion for helping others. And she's giving you a roadmap, and the importance of the diversity of thought, diversity of ideas, diversity of background, diversity of conversation. And of course, all those things will help to make her who she is, and she is indeed a shining example for what we need in our local community leadership, state and national as well, not just one-dimensional thought. And that's why I think that you are so phenomenal, because you have rolled all of what you have learned through the course of your life, and you brought it to bear, and you're continuing to do a phenomenal job there. And we are doing everything we can we talk about thoughts and prayers, but we also look at the financial support that needs to come to help you to get to where you need to be, and just to be able to support you and let you know that we appreciate you for the job that you're doing and the leadership you're bringing.
That means so much coming from you, because I've certainly felt the same way about how you have led the community, how you represented, and how you still do, and the example that you lead for us. So,
wow.
Like I said, it matters.
We're excited. We're excited. Give us some. What are some of your goals for the future? Whether it be on the council, or whether you've got some other thoughts that you may have. What are some of your ideas? I heard you say that you guys are coming up with plans on how to address these are issues that to some people might be boring, transportation, until they get stuck in traffic.
Right.
Then it's not boring then.
Well, I'm really excited because this year, starting July this year, I chair the TPO. And for our area, I've been working to create relationships within this organization. And the TPO is the Transportation Planning Organization. So we have a lot to do with what projects the Department of Transportation funds. And we're talking, it takes $5 to $6 million to build a road, a mile worth of road. And when we talk about how much development has gone into the area, there are so many roads that either need repair, repaving, new roads. For us here on the west side, there are roundabouts. There's a corridor that stays stuck between New Smyrna and where our new Sunrail station will be. And I've certainly asked for, resources to go towards that. Also, our evacuation location, Highway 17, we're doing a roundabout there, and also seeking to expand that area. Safe streets and complete streets. So I don't know if when you listen to the news every morning, you used to hear about severe accidents. Now you hear about fatalities.
Yeah.
Right? So something is happening on our roads that where before you had an accident and you were injured, but now you're having an accident and you're dying. So is that because of distraction? Is that because of speed? So working with the Department of Transportation, and we work to change, the path. We work to make more of an intermodal way of transportation to be able to include a more walkable, bikeable, rideable, electric car, all the different varying modes of transportation under the TPO will be able to address and help plan for the next 5 years what that will look like. And I'm really proud of that because there's a lot of changes that are going on. We have a new executive director. We have a new transportation secretary in Tallahassee. And he lives here in Volusia County. He served here in Volusia County in District 5, and then he was just promoted to replace the state secretary in Tallahassee. So that means we have already established a relationship. And so much of what happens, it's about relationships.
Yes.
It's about letting people know why you're here, what you stand for, what you want, why you want it, and connecting to the people who can help pull that through. And that's what I've worked to do in relation to transportation. The same thing with Career Source. I work with Robin King to initiate a creative program to do leadership and employment for youth through our Boys and Girls Club, through some of the mentoring programs here in Volusia County. They get a stipend to work with some of our 14 to 17-year-olds and help them gain a better understanding of employment. Last summer, a number of the children had jobs downtown DeLand. So think how proud I was after working 10 years to get people of color downtown. Now we're actually placing young black children into employment situations, into employment training situations in downtown DeLand. So those are the things that bring this full circle for me, because I love it. I love to see a plan come together. I love to see a seed planted, nurtured, and get to the point where you see some results. And I think we're in that sweet spot at this time, even through a pandemic and a lot of the challenges. I think it's also created some opportunities. And I need these next 4 years re-election to pull through a number of the seeds I've been planting for the last 10 to 12 years and for the last 4 years on the council.
Wow. So in your words, if I'm hearing you correctly, the pandemic in some ways was like the worst of times. We know we lost a lot of people throughout the country, over 1 million people who unfortunately died. And yet it has become, may I flip it around and say, but it's also been in some ways sort of the best of times, because it sort of forced us into making some changes that in the long run will be for the better. I was thinking about technology as one example. I mean, Zoom. I mean, today I was doing a mediation with we had one person was in North Carolina, another person was in South Carolina, another person was in southern part of Volusia. I was here, another person was here. And I look at that and say that only occurred because we began to think outside, how can we solve this problem during a very difficult time?
Exactly.
And so you're one of those thought leaders that help us to be able to, address that. And just like you said about transportation and how do we get people to get along with each other, and how do you, tell people what's doable, what's possible, because there's so many, unfortunately, that have not seen it happen. Well, I want to thank you tonight.
Open their minds to expand, beyond the I can't and I couldn't and I didn't, to what you can. What can you? What's the vision forward? Yeah.
And you also have you tackle some education issues. So saying that you're inspiring and motivating people to say, look, there's a place for you, a space for you. I saw something earlier today that made me pause. That said that unfortunately far too many people are focused upon dumbing down our country as opposed to pushing us forward with intellect and with challenge. We can do things that are good. We can, in fact, scriptures say we can do all things through Christ who strengthens us. And so I just want to celebrate you, because you have shown us that you can take your experience, you can take your desires, your dreams, you can take the opportunity of building relationships, you can take the opportunity of being able to have a thought and be a thought leader that is different from what maybe others around you or those who come from a limited background. You've rolled all that together, Councilwoman, and I want to just take a moment to say thank you. Thank you for all that you do, and we celebrate you. And as we get ready to wrap up for tonight, do you have any closing thoughts that you'd like to share with our audience?
So what I tell people is that I believe I came here to connect, communicate, and collaborate. And I came to do that intentionally. So I tell them my word for this year and going forward is what I do with intent, intentionally, and it is to continue to connect, communicate, and collaborate to make a difference in our community and our country and our county.
Amen. Amen. Well, you certainly are, not only are you saying it, but you're doing it. And so we just want to thank you for sharing some time with us tonight and being able to help stir up that, not only now, but stir up those who may be thinking about the idea of wanting to run for office. But mind you, that we don't want y'all trying to run against our councilwoman now. But in your all respective communities, there are opportunities for you to contribute. So, and if you've been sitting on the sidelines and you've been thinking about, you've been complaining about stuff and saying they won't do this and they won't do that, why don't you begin to lay a roadmap on how you can contribute and how you can get involved at the local level? Because I remember, I guess it might have been W.C. Fields that once said that all politics are local. All politics are local. And so she's giving you a roadmap tonight. So, again, yes, I want to thank Councilwoman Barbara Girtman from here in DeLand, Volusia County, Florida. We are the east side. I like to refer to us as the front porch for Orlando, Orange County, here on the Atlantic Ocean. We are a great place for you to come, for you to visit, and to experience some of the great things that we have going on here in Volusia County. And a great deal of that, we want to give thanks to Almighty God for giving us a councilwoman by the name of Barb Girtman. Barb, thank you again.
I thank you. And if anybody wants to reach out, it's barbgirtman.com. We keep it simple.
barbgirtman.com. Check her out, folks. barbgirtman.com, and you send her a note and let her know how much you enjoyed the show, and let her know that you're praying, and also if that means if you feel motivated, I'm sure you'll get some instructions on that website on how you might be able to help her.
It's right,
to contribute
it's right there.
Her.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Fantastic.
barbgirtman.com.
Right.
Thank you.
barbgirtman.com. And with that, we're going to sign off for tonight. This is Judge Hugh Grimes, grateful for the opportunity to be able to sit in for our dear friend G.L. Henderson here on the G.L. Henderson Hour. And as we always say as we get ready to sign out, never go to bed as ignorant as you were when you got up this morning. Every day, you ought to learn something new and put it to work. God bless you all. We'll say good night.